the midterms, he either gets impeached or gets obstructed, and then nothing else can happen for the remainder of his 4 years. But with actions like this from the Democrats, booing, jeering, or whatever, screaming and constantly just jeering, Al Green getting thrown out. Did you guys hear that they're drafting a censure of Al Green over this?
Good.
Yep.
In this video, Tim Pool discusses the Democrats' piss-poor efforts to push back on Donald Trump. Tim Pool plays a clip of CNN panel discussing the topic and adds his own commentary. With that, let's watch Tim Pool go in on the floundering Democrat Party.
I'll tell you that. And Frank Luntz explains why he's angry with Democrats after Trump address. This is good news for everybody who is concerned the Democratic Party has lost their minds, because this is a guy who does panels where he convenes a bunch of people, asks them what they think. And here he is basically saying the Democrats' tantrum and reaction to Trump is manna from heaven for Donald Trump. Take a listen.
Because it was what I call a killer line. It's something that differentiates Trump from other presidential speeches, from other key moments in politics and in governing. I just want to emphasize that was the longest speech ever. It's not quite a State of the Union, but it's similar to it, and no one's ever gone longer than him.
Yeah.
That was the most political speech ever. He referred to his predecessor by name more than any other individual who's held one of these speeches. Third, it was the most partisan ever. Whether you had Democrats sitting on their hands or Republicans jumping up, you knew exactly who was who based on the view on television and based on being in the chamber. And fourth, it was the most disruptions by the minority party ever. Whether you're holding up those placards, whether you're yelling at him as the congressman did and being unwilling to keep quiet when he was called on it, if you're a Republican, that was arguably, and I've been doing this now for decades, if you're a Republican, that was manna from heaven. That was exactly what you wanted to hear, and you're shocked that he was saying it so bluntly. If you're a Democrat, it was sheer hell, because it tells you that this is going to continue. And if you're an independent, you agree with the policies, but you don't agree with the tone.
This was the best thing that could have happened to the Republican Party and Trump's coalition. The big concern most of us have is how much can Trump get done before the midterms, because that's what
The Democrat Party is bleeding members right and left. They even acknowledge that they have a problem with purity tests and excluding anyone who doesn't agree with every single thing that they say. The Democrats' behavior at Trump's speech to Congress should be the most shameful, embarrassing, unexplainable the Democrat Party has ever seen. However, they are so out of touch about what's important to the American people. Apparently, they're even out of touch with what basic decorum looks like. But besides a few outsiders in the Democrat Party, all of them think it was a great idea. I saw online a clip of some idiot Democrat female congresswomen that were, wearing some stupid shirts that were like oppose Trump or something stupid. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were selling merch during Trump's speech to Congress. If there had been an outburst or two on, one or two very contentious topics, I don't think that would have been crazy, But the fact that they wouldn't cheer for some truly inspiring and heartwarming stories, and just in that moment understand that we're all Americans and we can be proud of the American people when great things happen, showed that their party comes before the American people. Let me restate that. It just confirmed what we already knew, that their party puts itself before the American people. I mean, prior to that clown show, people were sprinting away from the Democrat Party. I can't imagine after that. I mean, they'll downplay it, but this guy said it was manna from heaven. I don't know if it's that, but I know for certain it certainly can't hurt to have that in people's memories going into midterms. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
when squishy Republicans will bow out and stop supporting his agenda. And that's when, if Trump loses the midterms, he either gets impeached or gets obstructed, and then nothing else can happen for the remainder of his 4 years. But with actions like this from the Democrats, booing, jeering, or whatever, screaming and constantly just jeering, Al Green getting thrown out. Did you guys hear that they're drafting a censure of Al Green over this?
Good.
Yep.
Good.
I have to imagine Republicans planned this. Like, they crafted this specifically to be like, how can we make Democrats make a fool of themselves? They're so predictable.
I mean, look, I personally have said multiple times we need to see more things like censure, because a lot of times there's really egregious behavior by people in Congress. And I honestly, this is one time where I'll say both sides. There's egregious behavior by people in Congress. And because of the way that our political system works, there's not often repercussions. They don't get voted out of office, et cetera, et cetera. So there's got to be something to say, look, this guy's kind of a scumbag. And I think that censure, because removal from office is so difficult, censure, give it to him. Let him, at least let the record show that this person's trash.
Yeah, well, and Al Green's been in public office since like the 70s. So he's one of those swamp creatures, if you will. And the liberals, they should lead by example. They always say Trump needs to be better at reaching the hand over the aisle. They should lead by example and actually clap when we want to reduce cancer rates in children.
I mean, you could argue that if Democrats deviated from their standard play, which they can't, but if they did for some reason, they'd have cheered for Trump when Trump did good things, and it would have given more arguments to their positions in other areas. I was talking about this morning because they were holding up the sign saying save Medicaid, and they've not made a single argument other than don't trust Trump.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
That's it. It's like Trump says he's not going to touch it. Trump says he's not going to touch Social Security or Medicaid. So you just waving that sign doesn't mean anything to anybody. Imagine if a single Democrat had two brain cells to rub together and said, to be honest, I actually think it's good that Doge is going in and trying to find waste, fraud, and abuse. I wish them the best. However, the concern here is they have already, in their mass firings, laid off critical employees and had to rehire them. And so I get it. You're doing a broad brush stroke. We want the waste, fraud, and abuse gone. That was overreach. My concern is they might accidentally step on Medicaid or Social Security. Regular people would say that's reasonable. In fact, I could literally say that right now, and people, that's a reasonable position to take. But Democrats can't do it. If you actually wanted to win an election, that's what your argument would be. It would be like, vote for me because we'll be more cautious when it comes to the things you need.
Yeah.
I like Trump. He does some good stuff. We'll do it a little bit better.
Use a scalpel instead of a hatchet for cutting these jobs.
They're not even using a hatchet. They have like the back of a wooden chair. They're beating against a tree, hoping the tree falls down, and it's not gonna. You're like, dude, that's not an object that can cut through a tree. And they're not smart enough to understand this.
Yeah.
There's a peer pressure, too. I'm sure that anyone on the Democrat side in there who wanted to applaud anything knew they would face social repercussions for doing so. And I'm sure that it's the same on the Republican side. If you didn't stand up and clap for what you were supposed to stand up and clap for, you would face consequences. So
Democrats being tone deaf isn't a new thing. The fact that they've never realized that a little decorum, humility, authenticity, graciousness, it goes a long way towards being taken seriously. Even the most unengaged voter looks at their behavior during that speech and says, well, that was political theater. And Tim just said they're not smart enough. I really think the politicians, the vast majority of politicians in the Democrat Party are low IQ. They were holding up signs that said, save Medicare and don't trust Trump. Two real big problems with that. As Tim already mentioned, Trump and no one in his cabinet has ever said they're going to cut Social Security or Medicare. And then even the dumb line, don't trust Trump, that's one of the reasons your party's in the position it's in. That's all you have to say. And once that strategy, and now that that strategy has been blown up, you literally don't even know what else to complain about because Trump is doing a lot of good things. Tim gave a perfect example of something a Democrat could say to, at the very least, sound like a sane Democrat and endear himself to voters. So I'm thankful for their behavior, especially with Tim's point about the midterms. All the hard work Trump and his administration are doing right now could really be derailed if the Republicans don't hold on to the majorities in the House and Senate. But let's wrap up the video.
So there's that, and there's this mean girl behavior. I mean, they're literally dressing up in pink costumes and doing their theatrics together. Like, on Tuesdays, we wear pink. That was the last straw for me. Like them coordinating their outfits like 12-year-old girls, protesting the mean jerk who's running for student president. It was embarrassing for all of female kind.
You know, that is a good point about the social thing, because that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, and then I'm imagining the joke I made about beating a tree with the back of a wooden chair. It's like you've got a group of Democrats and they're all standing around, and there's literally a hatchet on the ground. But then Donald Trump is seen using it, so Democrats are like, "No, we don't do that. That's wrong. It's racist." And then the moderates, 5-10 years ago, were like, "Guys, what are you proposing?" And then they start trying to use a blunt stick hitting the tree. And if you dare speak up, they hit you with the stick. So then the moderates end up leaving, joining Trump, who's reasonable, makes sense. I got to be honest, he's talking big game and he's kind of a jerk when he does it, but at least he's actually getting the job done.
Yeah, he referred to these
Just one last thing that caught my attention. Tim was talking about how Doge has laid off some people from their jobs, but then ended up having to rehire them. I have empathy for that individual, as that's a roller coaster, thinking you're out of a job, now you're back in a job. But I know for a fact that Elon Musk did the same thing when he had kind of mass layoffs at Tesla and or SpaceX. He went overboard with some of the firing and then had to rehire people. For the people they're rehiring, that's pretty good evidence that, okay, we miscalculated. You are really necessary to the functions of this department. I'd say that's a huge compliment and quite a resume builder when everyone's getting fired, but you were so important they had to hire you back. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would rather our government be lean and have job openings or have to rehire people than it just to stay bloated so we can over time evaluate these agencies. At the speed with which our government moves, that basically means no one would ever get fired. And even if they did, they would be hiring people, and these bloated departments or agencies would be growing at a rate faster than the rate of letting people go, if that makes sense. So you've got to make decisive action on some of these things. And then if you have to rehire someone, say, hey, we made a mistake on that. We're still happy with the direction we're going, but your work, your job functions were obviously critical to this, and we overlooked that. We're sorry, and we'd love to have you back. But we want to hear from you. What do you all think about the Democrats' behavior during the president's speech? And do you believe, like I do, that it's pushing more and more people away from the Democrat Party? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one.